All right.
Okay, for sure.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Aaron, and I'm an alcoholic. I've been asked to share a little bit about my background, my story, history, things like that. And as far as my personal life goes, I grew up in a household that was pretty much the standard. My family was well off. I'd say middle class, upper middle class. My father was a doctor. My mother's a housewife. I have one older brother. And something that you've probably heard, and I hear quite often. As far as alcoholics, drug addicts, it, it it's kind of the rumor that maybe we come from broken homes, or there's some traumatic experiences that left us no choice other than to become alcoholic, addicted to drugs. And I mean, while that can be the case, you do see that people that came from homes and situations like that just isn't my case. And I know many circumstances where people's stories coincide with mine. And like I said, my childhood was overall everything you could really think of. I didn't really ever want for anything. Went to private schools. Um, Everything was great, and I don't know what it was. It seemed like for me just kind of like some deeper um, something just incomplete, within me. Nothing from the outside world that I wasn't getting, just something within me. And when the first time I found alcohol, it pressed certain buttons it doesn't press in other people, and it was love at first sight. I knew, you know what I mean, I was gonna have to have it, and it ended up just tearing my life to the ground. So I think we're gonna get into a little bit of that, but hopefully that provides just a little bit of information, and we'll see where we go from here. So.
All right, thank you. So how old were you when you first tried alcohol or drugs?
The the first things I tried was alcohol and marijuana separately, but at the same age. So I was 13, and I actually drank. I actually did both of them by myself both times. My friends had gotten drunk one weekend. We were in eighth grade, and I wasn't with them, and they told me about how much fun it was and all the crazy stuff they had done. So I came home that night. It was a Monday because they had gotten drunk over the weekend. They told me about it Monday. I came home to my house, and I went behind my parents' bar and just did the deed. So anyhow, and marijuana was pretty much the same thing. I'd gotten some from some friends and went out in the woods by myself and did it. So eighth grade, 13, right in
Yeah.
there.
So would you say you were peer pressured into it, or?
Yes and no. One thing, I mean, I was always curious about it. My parents drank, and so I was kind of curious what it did. And you'd see people doing it at parties, but I don't know. I just always had this thing, and I feel like I really fit in school or whatever. And all the kids, when they were talking about going out drinking the weekend before, they were getting a lot of attention from. They kind of seemed like the popular kids or the cool kids, and so I did want, you know what I mean. I wanted a part of that, and so no one so much really pressured me, but I wanted to fit in, so I did it.
Did you ever think of the effects, like whenever you went and took the alcohol from your parents? Did you ever like, oh man, am I gonna get in trouble, or what was going through your mind at that time?
Yeah, I was worried about getting in trouble because my father, you would probably label him as a problem drinker. I don't know what you would call him. He would drink every night, and but he'd go to work every day. So I mean, some people call him functioning alcoholics. It's difficult to explain, but he always, I think he saw like the dangers that could come from alcohol, so he always stressed for me not to drink. So I knew if I got caught that night, I'd be in some pretty big trouble. But other than that, I had no idea it would do anything. It would ever. I had no idea it would be my downfall
Yeah.
ultimately. So
And what about, you said you had an older brother?
yeah,
Was he an influence to any of this, or was he, how did?
believe it or not, he's a year and a half older than me, but he's a little more sheltered, I guess is the only way to put it. So he hadn't, even though he was older than me, he had never drank or done anything. I was the first one out of us two to drink, so he didn't. He was kind of on the sidelines. We lived together, but he and I weren't in the same circle. We didn't get along very well. So
Gotcha. And so you start out with alcohol in eighth grade. Did that just carry on into, and you said marijuana in eighth grade as well?
hmm
That just carried on into high school with trying new things, or how did that go?
oh yeah, well, alcohol and marijuana I loved immediately, but obviously you go to high school and just you're introduced to a whole new world. I mean, there's everything from pills, hallucinogens, just a whole bunch of cocaine, different things. So it's kind of like once you do one, you're curious to see what everything else does. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it definitely escalated throughout the years.
All right. What all drugs did you try, and like how were you introduced to them? Were you introduced to them at friend's house, or like at parties, or how did that go?
Yeah, well, like I say, other than the alcohol and marijuana, which I tried myself. Introduced cocaine with some buddies. I think that was around my sophomore, junior year. Xanax, probably around the same time, sophomore, junior year. Some friends had some at a party they were selling. Let's see, acid. I'm not big on that, but some people were doing it. I've tried that twice, and same thing at a party. Well, a kid was actually selling it at school. Mushrooms, the same thing. And then even opiates. There's this whole opiate epidemic going on these days, and I've tried those a couple times. I think at a hotel party twice, but it just wasn't really my thing. But the sad thing is, everything is out there. If you want it, I'm sure most people know you can find it.
How did you feel whenever you first tried it? Was it like a rush, or would you say you wanted more after that? Or
Oh yeah, the alcohol was my thing. Like, if I could have my choice between anything on earth, drug wise, it would be alcohol. And I'll tell you, I've talked to people who aren't big drinkers and definitely, aren't alcoholics, and this is, they just don't get what it did to me. Everything just sounds, everything just seemed complete. Like, when I drank, it just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I was perfectly at ease, and you know what I mean? I was fine with who I was and who you were, and you know what I mean, whether you liked me or not. All my cares and worries just went away, and that seems pretty common, but on the much deeper level, like, I felt like the effect I got was something I've been looking for my whole life, and I knew I was going to do it as often as possible, regardless of the consequences from there on out. So.
All right. And what about, how long were you on drugs? Like, when did you realize, I've got to stop, this isn't good for me?
You see, the onset of trouble and consequences was pretty quick. So I had my first drink at 13. I was in treatment the first time via my parents by 16. So I didn't really take it that seriously. I kind of thought, I'm young, I don't need, rehab. But I'd say probably by the time I was about 19 or 20, it was definitely an issue. I ended up going to the penitentiary when I was 19, actually, and I get out, and while my friends have jobs and careers and education, it's like I don't. I'm starting to really look. It really got put in perspective that this is a big problem I need to do something about.
So whenever you came back, whenever you got out, did you decide to go to college then, or what did you decide to do? Or
No. I aspired to, but it just, alcoholism really took over my life. I couldn't work. I barely, everything went out the window, even like hygiene. You wouldn't believe it, me sitting here talking to you now, but it really dominated my life. But it wasn't until I sobered up that I got back in college, and actually started, taking steps towards a good future. So while I always wanted to, it took about 10 more years of just chaos before I actually pulled it together.
yeah, so you were, even though you'd gone through rehab the first time, whenever you went back to school, you kind of fell off again. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, well, when I got out of rehab I went at 16. I got out at 17. And yeah, I didn't care about school. I just, I ended up failing out, and then I was out of school for about a 10-year period until almost my 30s, and it's for me, like, school and alcoholism, and drinking, they just don't go together. Like, I won't go to class, I don't study, I don't think, it's just, I'm not going to pass anyway, so.
yeah. What were the effects of your family, like, and the effects of you, not only emotionally but like physically? Did you have any symptoms like you were so strung out that you were shaking, or headaches, vomiting, any of those?
Oh yeah. Hangovers, everyone knows what a hangover is, but if you drink for a few weeks straight, like, around the clock, like, not just every night for a few weeks, like day and night for a few weeks, you actually detox from it. And yeah, the shakes, tremors, cold sweats, of course, nausea. I've even had seizures from withdrawals, and effects with my family. Like, they were just, they were really scared. I've been in the hospital countless times, sometimes on respirators, because I drank so much I wouldn't breathe on my own. And of course, I was not making great decisions while I was drinking, but more than angry or upset, my family was just really worried, like, for my life, my well-being. So.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions I have. Thanks again for doing this with us, and yeah, you were great. So thanks.
No problem. Well,